Well, how you doing? It is Koko Ricky playing a little bit of Doom 2. And, yeah, I kind of felt my butt clench there as I was just like, wait a second, better get that chainsaw! There's a lot of very easily missed secrets in this first level, and I was, replaying this recently and realized that I had never really found all the secrets, and it really just goes to show how much depth there is to the game. I've played it numerous times since the mid-90s, and end up finding new stuff every time. It's really pretty neat. So, Doom 2 was, of course, the sequel to Doom, which was released in December of 1993. And Doom 2 was released a little less than a year later in late September of 1994. And, at that point, Doom was really such a phenomenal success and such an important part of the development. It was just so instantly influential that people were calling first-person shooters Doom clones for a short period because the genre had been around technically since the late 70s, if you count the very earliest kind of FPS, sort of format games. But the early 90s was when it sort of came into fruition. The genre really, became a thing. But there was this brief period where, because Doom had stood out above everybody else and everything that was coming out just seemed like a shameless copy, people were calling them Doom clones. And I remember seeing an article in, I don't know what gamer magazine it was, but this was definitely around 96 or so. There was this article about called The Daughters of Doom, and it was this really interesting kind of expose on dark forces, and there were a couple of other games from that time, and I wish I could remember what they were. Duke Nukem 3D was probably mentioned in there, I'm sure, but the first-person shooter moniker or term or whatever, I guess probably around the early 2000s it had become accepted. I think that sometimes these were called shooting games, or I don't know. I just remember the whole FPS term kind of taking a while to catch on. God. Okay. I wanted to just exit the level, and I'm like, but you don't have much health there. And, certainly long before regenerating health became a thing in... Trying to get a couple of those guys before I step into there. So it's kind of neat because, you can kind of risk the confrontation you'll have in here to get that armor there. And, I guess I could have gone the other way, but I don't know. Doom is just very good about... first time. There we go. Sometimes that jump is really hard to get. Doom always gives you a lot of choice, and anytime a Doom game has not been super memorable, like Doom 3, which is actually a pretty good game, it just, exploration and being able to approach a level in many different ways is something that wasn't really one of its strong suits, and that's why it's in some ways somewhat forgettable. But I appreciate the fact that although I probably end up finding a preferred pattern as far as how I want to beat the level, there's a lot of room for experimentation, and that was an important part of Doom's design that often is very easily overlooked, which is the fact that you're really having to think on your feet And I mean, I make it look kind of easy, I suppose. Especially since I had a lot of failed attempts at doing this whole Let's Play thing, and as a result, I played these first few levels quite a few times recently, and so it's not that hard anymore. But going through them and kind of sucking for a while, and just the frustration that would ensue, which would eventually start to lift as I started to master, you know, each level. And, I mean, maybe not completely master, but certainly I would reach a point where I was getting through it fairly quickly, which is kind of what's happening now, where, you know, I mean, Doom has such an incredible range in terms of pace, because, you know, you can really take your time and spend 15, 20, 30 minutes in a single level, and at the same time, you could really bum rush everything and be done with the entire game in like 20, 30 minutes. I don't know what the... I don't know, like, what the record is, but I think it's like something like 20 to 25 minutes. I mean, people just have been playing the game for decades, and it's funny how the collective knowledge about the best strategies, the best pathways to take, and all that business, all that stuff, you know, it really, oh boy, I shouldn't have fallen off there. I kind of got caught off guard because I just started thinking about the volume settings I had for, yeah, there we go. I was just thinking about the volume settings that I had for my mic, and I'm like, am I actually... Do I have a good recording going right now? Yeah, real professional, Richardson. I mean Rickers. I mean Ricky. So, Koko Ricky, right? That's the moniker I went with. I was gonna go with Mr. Cornbread, and a friend of mine thankfully pointed out to me. Okay, I'm forgetting something here. Is it this one? Son of a... Okay. Gotta kind of... Well, who... Okay, one of those guys over there. Yeah, I'm kind of... Right. There we go. So that's kind of a neat little... A lot of bridge... Not tricks, traps. Tricks and traps, that's coming up. What's the word I'm looking for? Puzzles. There's a lot of puzzles that are kind of based around raising a bridge. I guess yeah, it milked that design choice pretty well. Okay, so this is one of those levels that is a lot bigger and more expansive than the last few that I've played, and what's really interesting is just how much of it can kind of be circumvented by just knowing where to go, and I really took quite a scratch from that Hell Knight there, but when I was trying to get better at this level and struggling to kind of get to this part here that I'm still struggling with, I remember just dying so many times, and it just took so long to kind of figure out, like, I guess because, you know, as a kid, I would play these levels, and only upon replaying them much later would I realize that a lot of this stuff was completely optional. Sometimes up to 2/3 of a level might necessarily be oh boy, a secret. You know, up to 2/3 of a level or more may sometimes be completely irrelevant to getting to the exit, because there is a kind of minimal pathway, and I mean, because of Doom's design, those minimal pathways, there's probably a couple ways that you could approach a very, very speedy sort of run. But ultimately, what people do is they start to find the. Okay, it's kind of ouch, ouch. People start to slowly find the, I guess, fastest possible way to get through each area, and I mean it's speedruns kind of started with Doom in a way. I mean, I think Quake is the game that's the most associated with the birth of speedrunning, I think, but definitely definitely there's an attitude. There we go. Sometimes it's so hard to get that damn rocket launch plasma rifle. I didn't have to. The hitbox for that Spider Mastermind is like really, 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 really big. It's like maybe the biggest hitbox in the game. So if you're having to kind of dance around him, it can be, or her, or it, whatever it is. If you're having to dance around it, sometimes that's just impossible. And I got killed trying to get that plasma rifle many times, so I'm pretty lucky. So this is the first like really, really big level, really, really big level. And like I said, well, no, that was, I guess I was talking more about the waste tunnels, kind of being one where it's pretty big and you could skip a lot of it. But this is another example of like really the levels are starting to open up now, and Doom 2 gets pegged as having inferior design to Doom 1, and I kind of have this theory that that's not necessarily the case, and it's the excessive amount of gray and brown in Doom, which has a lot to do with Doom's palette and the kind of textures that id chose to make for the for the new, because it's actually reusing almost all the textures from Doom 1 except for a handful, and the new textures that are added are mostly gray and brown, especially brown. And I kind of wonder if the game had been textured a little differently, like even just using the textures that are there, but doing a different texture job. It would be an interesting experiment to see if people would respond differently. Like, oh no, that's the first time I've fallen in that. I feel like such an idiot. So, well, that didn't work. Oh boy. See, yeah, that was kind of a little weird little dance there. Hopefully he'll get crushed now. I love how the imps start to attack it. There's a lot more opportunities for infighting in Doom 2, and I think that's a big part of its one of the big things that it brings to the table, especially in Gotcha, which not gonna see that for a while. So, oh, really took a hit there. Okay, finally. What? Why didn't the damn elevator go down? Okay. I'll try this again. Okay, well, the spider... That's nice. Spider's done for. And I lost my train of thought. I forgot to press the damn switch there. I thought it was one of those walkover triggers. It totally isn't. I was just on it. So I'm not going to really be able to take advantage of the soul sphere because I barely have any health. Yeah, I really like the lighting here. Okay, so Doom 2 has a lot of brown, and I feel like that if you were to if somebody were to take it upon themselves to just retexture like all the most drab parts of the game and each level and all that, I wonder if it would change people's perception of whether or not that level is actually all that crappy. Like, don't change the level at all. Just literally only change the use of texture. And I kind of feel like that there might be a more satisfactory experience for some people, because there's this weird feeling that is starting to go away now that I've been replaying these levels and having a lot of fun. But there's this weird yucky feeling that I think I kind of carried over from maybe my teenage playthrough. Some playthrough kind of left me with the notion that the Doom 2 had a lot of kind of whatever levels, and maybe part of it was fueled by seeing people in the community talk about it and kind of feeling like, well, that seems valid, you know, and maybe being overly agreeable, I don't know, but I had this sort of yucky feeling like, oh, Doom 2 has a bunch of levels that aren't that great, and there's a couple that are kind of stinkers, but most of these feel really, really good, and I feel like that yuck feeling has to do largely with the texturing. So, oh, that was just like too close almost. There's some nice kind of you know, poking from behind cover gameplay here, which you know, I think Doom 2 or the Doom games are sometimes painted as these games that are extremely up close and personal, like extremely confrontational, and that's not always the case. There's many opportunities. Well, first off, there's plenty of quiet sort of not so busy areas where there's not a lot going on, like now, but of course I killed everybody, but I kind of hate this part. It's like there we go. I just love this secret because it's just a strange looking little environmental kind of thing, and it's kind of makes you wonder like what's going on there, like what is this weird place that I found. So wait, am I supposed to? Where am I supposed to? No, yeah, back up here. That brain fart. So with a different coat of paint, maybe these levels wouldn't leave people feeling kind of blah, but that just goes to show, I think, the importance of you know, how much of an impact art direction has. And I'm not going to say by any means that id Software, like, you know, dropped the ball or something on Doom 2, not by a long shot, but definitely seeing that they released it less than a year after the original, there's definitely a sense that if it had been like maybe a full year or longer, maybe they would have noticed some of these things and been like, man, this looks a little drab, maybe we could add an extra coat of paint or something, or change this up a little bit. Maybe they would have noticed that the Wolfenstein levels suck. Yep, I said it, they suck.